without tearing others down.
And now joining us today, we have Rich Dallas from Love and Hip Hop New York, Professor Eric Gordon from The World According to Eric, motivational speaker Shalakimia Moffitt, and Tiffany Robinson. Also joining us, our entertainment correspondent Kennedy Rue, also tapping in. Before we get started, we want to let you guys know we did reach out to Kevin Samuels to invite him on our platform and to be part of this conversation, but he did not get back to us. But we felt strongly about this topic that we wanted to continue the conversation. So thank you all for joining us. My first question is Kevin Samuels destructive or constructive for the culture?
He's more destructive than he is constructive. Black people specifically, because they consume most of his content, have a hard time living day in and day out. And when you see him kind of berate the women based off of what they think they want, he looks at them and he just checks them down like a used car.
And to kind of break that down, you know, we're talking heights, weights, financial aspects, and so many different things. Shalakimia, what are your thoughts? Is he destructive or constructive for the culture?
I think he's constructive. I think he brings the truth.
He brings the truth.
Yes, he brings the truth to the Black community, absolutely.
What type of truth? Rich Dollars want to know too.
Yeah, we need receipts.
I feel like we live in a world where it's so fake all the time. He's being realistic, which a lot of us should be, realistic with each other. Just like this young man said about him, talking about black women. Black women have bashed black men for years. When he comes to the table, he's having a conversation about a high value man. Some women that, I'm gonna be honest, that are on government assistance are out here looking for a high value man to take care of them. But you're not even high value. You're not trying to become high value or anything.
That's the problem with relationships today. Relationships today have become so transactional. It's almost like a race. Who can get what from who before we get to the point of we have to give? And that's what this thing does. When you start to condone this type of behavior, when you start going for hyperbole, you lose substance. And I feel like that's what dude is doing now. It's about clickbait. It's about berating women because it makes sense for the betterment of his viewership.
Now, in some of his interviews, he does defend himself. He says, my viewpoints come from research, my viewpoint come from analytics. And he also says, you know what I'm telling the women is what the world don't want to tell them. Tiffany, you had an IG Live with Kevin Samuels. What was that experience like for you?
I think it was very reflective of how much he does seem to isolate women into various types of groups, whether he considers them to be high value or not. I really felt like my aesthetics were on trial. He asked me my dress size, he asked me how much I weighed, and he asked me my career path. I find his rhetoric to be very divisive amongst black men and black women, to the point where whether men have seen me on the interview or not, I hear Kevin's rhetoric over and over again as if they have just been socially engineered to be misogynistic, no matter if they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and even the older generations, I'm hearing it.
Let's be for real, right? The men he's talking to, the men that follow him, are no better than incels. They're following this man because they're hurt and frustrated. He speaks out of hurt and anger. This dude is sitting behind an iPad spewing craziness for other frustrated black men. 90% of it is literally a hurt man going after women and telling them what they're worth and what they're not worth.
If somebody that was European was to do the same thing that Kevin Samuels is doing, we'd be up in arms. We'd be losing our minds.
So do you think he gets a free pass because he's a black man?
He doesn't get a free pass.
He doesn't get a free pass. And the reason we're here today is because we're not giving him a free pass. The reason we're here today is for this conversation is because people actually want to get rid of his channel and do those type of things. So he's not getting a free pass.
I want to give Shalakimia a chance to respond to this. What are your thoughts? You're hearing both of their viewpoints. Do you agree or disagree with what they're sharing?
I'm not saying I agree with everything that he says, but I also, feel like there's a lot of truth there. I'm not the type of black woman that is looking for somebody high valued. I don't look at those kind of things. But we're going to be real. A lot of women do that.
Do they understand how many people make $100,000 a year? It's not a lot of people who make over 6 figures a year, and everybody seems to want the specific kind of person.
Does he exploit the vulnerability of black women?
Of black people.
Of black
Absolutely.
people. Absolutely. I think that Kevin Samuels says things that most of our people don't agree with, there's still gonna be those people that do agree with. You might want to at least represent the masses as opposed to the minority. Most black women are not on welfare. Most black women don't do the things that he says that they do. But now you're making it seem as though that this is the masses, when in reality, this is the minority.
I'm a women's studies major. I went to an all-women's college. So I think it's very important to note that misogyny, patriarchy, all of these things are profitable. It is profitable to exploit women. It's profitable to berate them. It's profitable to have a narrative that is critical of women at a degree that I think is different than what men have to experience.
Tiffany, did you take that extra step to get a one-on-one consultation with him?
Absolutely not. I didn't fall into the sales funnel. It's pimping at its finest.
Exactly
so
what it
I
is.
don't even want, right, I actually don't even want him to be canceled. I would like to challenge Kevin to leverage his platform to bring our community closer together.
It's like fracking, right? He's looking for the cracks and he's searching for oil and he's getting it. He's basically calling everybody his bottom chick. And I'm the only one that can save you.
It's just giving men of my generation a mentality of like, you need to police the women in your life. You need to police the women around you.
It's turning angry.
Yeah, it's
turning competitive.
It was competitive before him.
They've been competitive from forever.
You have to be honest here.
But you're pushing that narrative of competition. You can't in one breath push the narrative and say, we don't need to be competitive. Find love. Find the woman who makes you happy.
Why do they watch him? Why do they watch him? Why do they go live with him? Can you answer that? Why do they do that? If they know what he's about.
Let me jump in on that, because how Kevin Samuels says he defends himself in that situation, and his first viral moment was when he said to a woman, you're average at best, you're gonna die alone.
Right.
That's one of the first viral moments, right? And he said if you went back and watched the whole 23 minutes, you would know what led up to that moment and how those clips were butted together.
That's a very narcissistic statement for him to make. Even in my interview, like there's a certain amount of gaslighting that takes place. So it's kind of like throwing a stone and then hiding his hand and saying, but I help 1% of the people that can afford my program offline.
If I'm in church, right, and I'm preaching at church and I sit there and talk about the glory of God, but then for 30 seconds I talk about how I go and hang out with Satan at the strip club, I mean, the message is still as flawed regardless, right? I mean,
The reality is this. The fact that we're sitting here having a roundtable discussion about dude's views and his misogyny or the way he treats women and all these different things, all this does is justify why he does it in the first place. Because here we are, and this is promotion.
Thank you all for weighing in on this discussion. Coming up, Kennedy's Chronicles takes us to Coachella. We'll be right back.